In a gated island community near Montreal, a biotech company is hired to maintain the fields of an exclusive golf club. They spray the area with their newest fertilizer, which melts the snow and keeps the grass green and fresh during winter, so the wealthy can play golf year-round. The next day in town, security guard Dan returns home with a load of supplies. Dan is a survivalist obsessed with preparing for disasters and heavily influenced by a conspiracy-filled radio show. That night, he practices making a fire without matches but fails. Frustrated, he uses the powder from a shotgun shell, which causes a small explosion and burns off one of his eyebrows. At the golf club, Dan's daughter Patricia works as a caddy, while Michelle, the CEO of the biotech company, plays golf with a rich couple to showcase the grass's excellent condition thanks to the fertilizer. However, beneath the soil, the fertilizer particles begin multiplying, contaminating the town's water supply. Meanwhile, at a studio, an actor named Jacques drinks a glass of tap water before heading out to buy groceries. At the store, all the fruit and tools are rinsed with tap water, and mist is sprayed on the perishables. Jacques starts feeling a little dizzy but brushes it off. When he gets home, Jacques notices his teeth turning green and his stomach begins growling. By the time he finds his wife in the bathroom, he has already transformed into a zombie. He attacks her, biting and eating her flesh, which causes her to turn into a zombie too. Jacques joins her in the tub, and as their eyes glow green, both freeze in place. Back at the club, Michelle and the couple return to the main building and are confused to find it deserted. Suddenly, a man runs out, yelling for them to run because people are getting sick. Moments later, a group of zombie employees appear, chasing after him. A dog shows up, and the woman calls it over, but the animal leaps at her, biting her neck. Michelle and the husband manage to push the dog away, only to see more zombies emerging. As the woman freezes and begins transforming, Michelle and the husband rush inside the building and lock the door to keep the zombies out. However, the dog sneaks in and bites the husband's leg, so they trap the dog in another room. The zombies pound on the door outside while the husband starts transforming into a zombie. He turns on Michelle, who quickly grabs a knife and hides in the kitchen. In town, Dan receives a call from an elderly woman complaining about her noisy neighbors fighting. When Dan goes to check, the neighbors answer the door, revealing they've turned into zombies. At the same time, the old lady who called him also transforms into a zombie and starts chasing Dan. He manages to get into his car and hide, trying to call for backup, but no one answers. As more zombies gather outside his car, Dan tries calling Patricia, but she doesn't answer because she's busy running from zombies herself. Worried, Dan decides to leave the company car, grab his own car, and arm himself to search for his daughter. Nearby, a teenage boy named Andre almost uses tap water to prepare milk for his baby sister Annie, but his mom reminds him to use bottled water to keep the baby safe. Andre doesn't drink water at all, preferring soda. Soon, his mom starts feeling dizzy, but Andre assumes it's because she's been exercising too much. Moments later, she transforms into a zombie and attacks Andre, chasing him through the house. Panicking, Andre runs outside and trips. Just as his mom is about to reach him, Dan arrives and hits her with his car. The impact injures her, but she's still alive. Andre wants to help his mom, but Dan stops him, explaining that 911 isn't answering and telling Andre to hide in his house. Dan then drives away. However, as more zombies approach, Andre refuses to abandon his mom. He grabs her by the legs and drags her back inside. After locking all the doors, Andre tries calling 911, only to hear a recorded message saying the island is under quarantine. Meanwhile, at the bridge connecting the island to the mainland, city cops have set up a gate, preventing anyone from entering or leaving. Back at Andre's house, his zombified mom tries to attack baby Annie. Andre quickly pulls her away and locks her in the bathroom. Inside, the mom notices water dripping from the shower head and climbs into the tub. Meanwhile, Annie's crying attracts zombies to the house. To keep them away, Andre covers her with pillows, blankets, and a large plush toy to muffle the noise. Once the crying stops, the zombies leave. A few minutes later, Andre's cat enters the house through the pet door, and a zombie reaches inside after it, almost grabbing Andre. Andre leaves the room, and the zombie stops moving, only to reactivate when Andre returns with a golf club. Instead of attacking, Andre chooses to hide. At the golf club, Patricia takes cover in the garage and finally manages to call her dad for help. Dan soon arrives and finds a group of zombies outside but doesn't hesitate. He quickly kills a few with his knife and knocks down others before rushing inside to rescue Patricia. Meanwhile, the police at the bridge gate retreat as military planes arrive to bomb the island's main areas, cutting off the power. The next morning, Annie's nanny tries to reach the house but discovers the bridge has been destroyed. At the same time, Andre records zombies through his window, but pauses to watch a press conference held by the Minister of Public Security. The minister explains that the bridge had to be destroyed to contain the outbreak and assures the public that the situation is under control. Right then, Andre's phone dies as its battery runs out. Afterward, Andre checks on his mom and notices she's covered in green goo. Suddenly, Annie crawls into the bathroom and their mom tries to attack her. Andre quickly makes makes noise and shakes her favorite vegetables to distract her, leading her toward the living room. There, the mom accidentally bumps into the TV stand, causing the television to fall on her and kill her. Heartbroken, Andre drags her body back to the bathroom and notices grass growing from her wounds. He grabs her phone, only to realize it's broken. Andre then uses a ladder to peek out the front door and sees the zombies standing still under the sun. Feeling restless, he straps Annie into a baby carrier, grabs the golf club, and opens the door. He uses the cat to distract the zombies, letting them chase it. And with the path cleared, he sprints toward the grocery store with Annie. When Andre reaches the store, the doors are locked, and he almost gets surrounded by zombies. Suddenly, Dan opens a door and pulls him inside just in time. Dan has been camping out there since the day before and has set up a small shelter, but he admits he has no plan to escape. He explains that all the boats have been taken, and swimming in the river would result in hypothermia. While searching for baby formula, Andre stumbles upon Patricia, who has been infected and locked in a room. Dan explains that he's keeping her because he hopes someone might find a cure someday. Meanwhile, at the golf club, Michel has fortified all the doors and is using a radio to communicate with his company. They tell him experts are on the way and instruct him to follow protocol. Michel is annoyed by the zombie dog's constant barking, so he kicks it away. It's also revealed that Michel has killed his infected friend in the kitchen. Back at the store, Dan struggles to start a fire again, so Andre uses a blowtorch instead. While eating, they listen to Dan's favorite conspiracy radio show, which blames the zombie outbreak on eco-terrorists. The host interviews the Minister of Public Security, but the politician dodges questions with vague, meaningless answers. Suspicious, the host speculates that the government plans to sacrifice the citizens to contain the infection. Dan calls the radio station and tells them there are survivors, asking for help. However, the host explains that the rest of the world doesn't want the infection spreading, so he needs to know what's really going on before choosing a side. Frustrated, Dan hangs up. Later, Dan and Andre talk about their next steps and agree they need to figure out the cause of the outbreak to help develop a vaccine. Dan suggests the water supply might be the source since everyone drinks from it except him. His paranoia keeps him from using tap water. Dan even speculates terrorists may have poisoned the water, though Andre finds this idea ridiculous. Moments later, the group leaves the store with Patricia. They've placed her head inside a cage to prevent her from biting anyone. The group comes across a cluster of zombies covered in green goo, soaking up the sun. Suddenly, a little girl zombie attacks Dan, but he quickly pushes her away. Unable to bring himself to kill her, he moves on. The group manages to reach Dan's car before the zombies catch up and drives away safely. Meanwhile, two armed twins sent by the biotech company arrive at the golf club. They take out every zombie in their path with ease. Inside, Michel is burning contracts and documents related to his deal with the club, but keeps a small sample of the fertilizer. The twins soon find him. Michel grabs one of their suitcases, which contains spheres holding a cure that can kill the infection within 24 hours. Before Michel can do anything with it, the twins overpower him, force him to eat the fertilizer sample, and knock him out. As they drag him away, one of the spheres falls to the floor. Back with Dan's group, they arrive at the water plant. Fearing that Annie's crying might attract zombies, they leave her in the car. Since Patricia can't stay with the baby, Dan and Andre bring her into the building with them. Inside, a zombie hiding in the water is covered in grass. Sensing it, Patricia bolts off to find him, forcing Dan and Andre to chase her. She leads them to a pool and jumps in. Dan dives in after her to rescue her, but the hidden zombie resurfaces and nearly attacks. Dan, thinking fast, holds Patricia in front of him, and the other zombie pulls back. Andre observes this and realizes zombies won't attack each other, but as soon as the monster hears him, it chases him instead. Andre runs outside, unintentionally drawing more zombies into the chase. Meanwhile, Dan struggles to get Patricia out of the water, accidentally tearing off her arm in the process. Andre makes it back to the car to hide, and Dan soon follows, using Patricia as a shield to keep the zombies away. Once inside the car, Andre hears a sound coming from Patricia and discovers she still has a phone. Using her severed arm to unlock it, he notices grass growing on the wound. Dan remarks how strange it is to see grass in winter, which makes him remember the golf club's fertilizer. He realizes this isn't the work of terrorists, but of golfers. At the golf club, the twins begin breaking the cure spheres onto the grass to eliminate all evidence. Dan's group arrives and spots strange smoke rising from the grass. Andre takes out his phone to record everything. They find the front door locked, so Dan searches for another way in. He climbs onto the roof, sneaks inside, and unlocks the door for the others. Once inside, they lock Patricia in a storage room and create a makeshift playpen for Annie using chairs. Dan and Andre begin exploring the building and come across the dog, still alive and now covered in grass. Dan begins feeling dizzy while Annie starts crying, so Andre hurries to calm her down, only to discover she's escaped the makeshift playpen. As Andre searches for his sister, Dan walks down a dark hallway and finds a series of bombs set to destroy the building. Despite feeling worse, Dan pushes on until he discovers the timer controlling the explosives. Too weak to stand, he uses Patricia's severed severed arm to stop the timer just in time, moments before his eyes turn green. Outside, the twins notice the lack of an explosion and head back in to investigate. They find Annie in the kitchen and feed her some fertilizer before leaving. Meanwhile, Andre continues searching and spots a zombified Michelle locked in a room, panicking. He runs in the opposite direction and finally finds Annie, taking her with him. In another room, Andre is confronted by the twins. One twin covers Annie's mouth while the other grabs Andre, forcing him towards some fertilizer to make him eat it. Before the sample can be forced down, Annie turns into a zombie and bites one twin's finger off. The other twin is attacked by a zombified Dan, and when she fends him off, Andre shoves her into Dan, who bites her. While trying to escape, Andre accidentally steps on the cure sphere, releasing smoke that spreads through the room. The cure begins working on Annie and Dan. Moments later, Dan chases Andre into the kitchen, but just as he's about to attack, he senses Annie's presence and stops. Meanwhile, the twins pull out their guns and shoot each other simultaneously before either can fully transform. Andre takes Dan's old-school phone from his jacket and uses it to call Patricia's phone. Following the ringtone, he retrieves her phone and records a video explaining everything, begging for help. The video spreads to the news, prompting the government to send military helicopters to clean the area. Soldiers with flamethrowers burn down any zombies they encounter. When Andre tries to approach them for help, carrying Patricia's arm to use for vaccine research, another survivor reaches the soldiers first but is shot down on sight. As the cure finishes working, Annie recovers, but Andre decides to hide, realizing the soldiers aren't there to save anyone. Back at the golf club, Dan also recovers. However, when soldiers open the door, they burn him and Patricia without hesitation. The Minister of Public Security makes a public announcement claiming the infection has been contained and eliminated. While speaking, he's seen drinking from a mug with the biotech company's logo, hinting he was part of the conspiracy. Andre continues wandering and comes across more bodies of survivors who were shot by the soldiers. Suddenly, he spots something in the river, a boat of volunteers led by Annie's nanny. The volunteers rescue Andre without hesitation. As they leave the island, Andre realizes Patricia's arm is no longer useful and tosses it into the water. A fish bites into the arm and quickly transforms into a zombie, hinting the infection may not be over. Don't forget to subscribe. Here's some more interesting story you don't want to miss.